My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts.
Here I am. And this is The Experts on Facebook Live, Twitter, and YouTube. Yeah, we're giving it all we got here today, folks. So, day before the 4th of July holiday, I got everything exactly right. It just took a little bit longer than normal. Well, we're about on target, except for the camera. So, now that the YouTube thing is starting to become familiar to me, I'm starting to be able to integrate all this on a very steady stream and actually be able to get this down pat. But there's some good stuff to talk about today in the news. Listen, I'm starting to realize that, as we all know, a lot of this is just repetitive headlines of the same idiotic behavior by different people. We're going to talk about that, Chris Christie. We're going to talk about MSNBC now in the competitive role against CNN to see who can be more racist and stupid. So let's get it started. Now, as you can hear in the background, you hear this. That's my AC blowing hard. So, listen, this is a homemade studio, so sorry. So, what I've been up to for the past, and I've been, kind of keeping this a little bit on the down low. I didn't want to say anything about it because I have to get certain things done before I start telling people about this book. I mean, I think I've alluded to it enough times where people now realize that I'm writing a book, but I'm going to officially announce this on Wednesday because I'm hosting the Sean Hannity radio show on Wednesday, July 5th. So all of you that are going to be driving home from the beach, well, you'll be able to listen to me that afternoon from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then back here that evening. So that day is the deadline. I've been talking about this deadline constantly. That day is the deadline for me to have my manuscript turned in. And needless to say, this is a very speedy process because it's a very timely book. It's exactly what people have been asking for from me. So, but I'm not going to go into full detail, the title and all the subject matter until we get to a point where you can order it online via Amazon. And that's going to be a little bit longer. So what we're going to have to do is I'm going to announce it, and everybody needs to stay tuned for social media and this show and everything else to make sure I got sound. Sounds BS. All right, there's somebody I got to block. So basically what we have to do is you just have to stay tuned for when I get this. All right, hold on a second here. So basically, sorry, I get distracted by Twitter right here. It's going to take a little bit for us to get all the other data inputted and for certain things to be taken care of before I can actually put this on Amazon and get it published. But the reason I'm announcing it now is because, for one, because I'm hosting Sean Hannity's show on Wednesday, and that's, by and large around 17 million people on a regular day. I want people to know that this book is coming out and that it's going to be available soon, so they can start looking and waiting and checking my social media to find out. It's going to be something that you want to read. We talk about this type of stuff here on this show, but trust me, it's going to be a good book, and it's something that's been in the works for many, many, many years. So I'm looking forward to getting it out there. that's why Friday I took off. That's why I've been people have been trying to text me and email me, and I have not been responding to anything. In fact, I think Jim DeLong and some other people were, they all, people that I actually know had a group text going about the 4th of July, and I just shut it down and withdrew from that conversation because I literally every second's counting for me. So we just, I have to concentrate on writing. Writing is a very interesting thing. If you've never, well, we've all tried in high school to sit down and actually write, but writing a book is interesting because, you know, when you go over the 30,000 or 20,000, really it's about 20,000 words. When you go over that, it starts taking on several different dimensions when you're writing because, first of all, you're trying to stay true to the topic that you're talking about. You try to stay true to the outline, and hopefully you'll make an outline. And then what you'll do is you'll end up bouncing around from point to point. It's kind of like the way they make movies. Well, at least this is my take on writing a book. You're going to bounce around from chapter to chapter, filling in different things that have to, where you start to realize your mind is set on this one thing one day. So boom, you go to that chapter, you start writing and filling in that stuff. And then the next day, maybe you wake up and boom, well, never for me when I wake up. It's in the evening when I write the best. So it's a very interesting process. Once you go over 20,000 words, you start to realize you are really expanding on something. And this is what's interesting. I've talked to a lot of people that say they want to write a book. A lot of people want to write books. And then you have, most people have something that would be interesting to most people. So what I suggest is that you take some time and start writing. Now, 2 years ago, I took time out to start writing this book. And what happened was I didn't get a book deal. Things were changing. I was on the TV a lot, on news and stuff. And so I got to a certain point where I just stopped. And I said, well, I don't want to go any further until, for whatever reason, I gave myself a lot of excuses. But here's the thing. Writing a book is not as time-consuming over a period of time as you would think. It's just that you have to sit and get into a mindset where it's like this, where I start talking and it starts flowing. And you have to get to that point. And no matter what happens, when you get to that point, you just don't stop. I don't care if the sun's about to come up. I don't care what's going on. The only thing that stops me from and makes me break up the periods of time where I'm writing is just the fact that I get loopy because I'm so tired and I can't seem to think clearly anymore. At that point, I'll stop. I'll go lay down and get some sleep. But once I get, and then the problem is it takes me a while to get back into that mindset. But once you get into that mindset and you get to a point where you're writing and you're writing and you're writing, it just starts to flow once you get to that point. It's a very interesting thing. I equate it to it's very similar to when you're running. And you start off, and you're anybody that's not a runner, but you start running, and you're like, oh my gosh, this sucks, and you keep running, and you start doing speed work, you start doing hills, doing these different things, and then one day you're out running, and you get what's called a runner's high, where you just feel the endorphins take over your body, and all of a sudden, you just want to run, and it just starts to go. That is very similar to the way it is when you're riding. It's difficult. You're all over the place. Your mind isn't focused. You'll sit down and you'll say, all right, I'm going to get started now, but first I'm going to take a break and I'm going to go get some ice cream. And and so what happens is you end up, wasting the day, but that's riding. But once you get to that point where it starts to flow, it's a very interesting process to be at that point. So, that has nothing to do with the topics that we're going to talk about today, but I figured you'd be interested in knowing that. So please, if you're watching this show on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, just know that I do have a book deal. It is going to be coming out, but as of right now, the manuscript's going to be submitted, and we're starting to spin up all the things that it's going to take for pre-orders to start. And that's where I'm going to start pumping everybody. This is going to be a difficult thing for me and for those people that tune into this show regularly and those that donate money. because the more pre-orders we get, and I can't tell you the title yet of the book. Somebody just asked. I can't go into the details of the book yet. You have to protect this stuff because people will try to steal it from you. So, but the issue that I'm going to run up against is that people are donating money to the GoFundMe page. What I want you to realize, and again, complete clarity in all this stuff, the GoFundMe helps continue this show. But what it's also done is allowed me the time to focus on this book, which is going to help out, hopefully, a lot of people. I would like to think millions of people will be able to get this book and that it will help them. But what it's going to also do is hopefully help out, assist, or eliminate the need for a GoFundMe page. So as you continue to donate to the GoFundMe page, it allows me the time to focus on this book. It allows me the ability to focus on this show. And then it's either going to be in July or August where I go back out on the road, depending on what's going down with this, with the production of this book. And then we will be able to take this show forward. Again, I'm also talking to Ron Bellin and some other people about how we take the different shows that people are doing that have real expertise, that are doing these Facebook Live shows. And by and large, the reason we're doing them is because the news networks and the media refuse to have real experts on their networks because first of all, we're not pretty like, the people that they want an image and they want a narrative. And when you have real experts on, the first thing you're going to get is you're not going to get a narrative. The second thing that you're not going to get is anybody that subscribes to a specific look, because real experts, real operators, real people that are on the street and in the mix or have recently or formerly been those types of people, they're not going to fit the mold that the news media wants, which is a squeaky clean. As far as the mainstream media, you're going to get squeaky clean, very gender neutral type people, usually wearing glasses with short hair, no beard. The men are feminized and the women are masculinized. And feminists and activists, they all subscribe to that, and that's what you're going to see on those television shows. You're also going to get you're going to get a lot of people who have high-ranking titles: general, admiral, deputy director, whatever. You're going to get these types of people that have climbed the ladder of titles, not the ladder of success, the ladder of titles, so they can get to a point where now they're on television. They actually have their book deals, and it's always about them. Rarely do these people actually put out books that mean anything or do anything to help anybody out. And it's all about them and about their titles. And so what you're going to see is these general neutral people, these effeminate males, masculine females. You're going to see generals, admirals, deputy directors, people like Juliette Kayyem, who is nothing, has no military or law enforcement background, yet she was a political appointee to the Department of Homeland Security and therefore somehow is an expert somehow in national security. You're going to see these types of people that will fit the mold, will go by the narrative, and will look the way that the mainstream media wants it. On Fox News, they're going to draw the neckline down for the women. They're going to pull the skirts up, make the eyelashes long, and push the boobs everywhere. And they're going to talk. It doesn't matter who it is or who's coming on there. They're going to have the look. The guys are going to be squeaky clean and yada, yada, yada. And the fact is, Fox News, at one point in time, was not afraid to have experts on there. And then over the last couple of years, as Roger Ailes departed, and I know people don't, care about Roger Ailes, and Roger Ailes is deceased now, and we're not going to talk bad about somebody who's deceased. But the reality is, regardless of what he did on an ethical level, there was a period of time when there were real experts being brought into Fox News, and that's why people really liked Fox News, because they were more about the conservative ideology, but they were also about putting real experts on. And I got in my debates on there as far as being an expert, and people having a different opinion than I did, but they didn't have the expertise that I have. So, but now Fox has gotten to the point where it's gotten to the point where it's just a fraction different than it is on the mainstream media on the left. The difference is they're still pushing the looks, but by and large, they use the conservative ideology or the free thinker ideology basically as a way to get people to view. It's not that that they identify with the ideology. It's not that they are promoting free thinking or conservatism. They just use it as basically a way to get clicks, advertising, so on and so forth. So that's why you're seeing people get younger. That's why you watch a show called The Specialist, and they talk about whatever, and they have 0 people on there that are specialists in what they're talking about. That's called lying to the public. And so that's why you have that type of stuff, is because the Murdochs are very, very liberal to the point they're globalist, and they don't understand you and your way of thinking. They don't understand free thinking. So they play the game with you like everybody else does. Okay. So you know what? I might as well go on with that before I go over to the Chris Christie issue. So let's go to the A block. We'll talk about MSNBC. So MSNBC has come out. Let me pull this up real quick. They're saying that I don't know why they won't let go of this nonsense, but MSNBC is saying that the reason people voted for Trump is because they are, let's see here. Let me pull it up here. They've already moved on Fox News. But MSNBC was saying there was somebody on, one of the people, there it is, on MSNBC, one of the hosts, was saying that the reason, this is an MSNBC contributor, says fears of brown people motivated Trump voters. And it's the author of, I'm not going to say their book, it's stupid, Joanne Walsh, a national affairs correspondent for the Nation and an MSNBC political analyst, used a weekend spot, this come off of FoxNews.com, on MSNBC's AM Joy to say really good research. Again, mainstream media. The mainstream media loves to just say that when they don't have proof of something, what they do is they just say that that there's really good research in this, or they say that unnamed sources said this, this, and this. So basically what this knucklehead Joanne Walsh said is that there's really good research that had proven that voters who cast a ballot for President Trump were simply racist. Now, this is the reason why I voted for President Trump. First of all, the Democratic Party has been subverted, or maybe they were created and it's always been this way, but by and large, it is a communist platform. The Republican, the GOP, the Republican Party, is the establishment members, and many within the Republican Party are also, I think, subverted communists, or they're communists that are subverting the Republican Party, or they're just organized crime, or they have their own secret motives where they are doing things that do not benefit the people but only benefit their party. That's anti-American, and that is something that I think we should look closely at. But that's what I saw. I saw President Trump coming in is not associated with either one of those parties. I saw a man that used those parties like any good business person would, especially in New York City. And I saw a man who had operational experience taking experts from different fields and bringing them together to build, buildings, basically, and other projects. That's why I voted for him. Also, based on the fact that the way he raised his kids, I believe that says a lot about a man. Although I don't like Jared Kushner, and I don't dislike, I don't dislike Jared. I don't know him. I don't dislike Ivanka because I don't know her. I don't like their association in the White House. And I say that, I'm going to continue to say that I don't like nepotism, and I think it's one of the biggest problems we have in Washington, D.C. That's on a side note. But I didn't vote for a president because I fear other people. I voted for a president because I wanted somebody who might bring in operational experience and actually focus on the problems and not focus on the party. And by and large, I think that's what we've gotten. I think that's what we've gotten. Unfortunately, he's surrounded by the party. He's surrounded by people like Reince Priebus, which I think was a necessary evil at the time, but has, in large part, come back to bite him. In that Reince Priebus is a part of this whole nonsense that we've been talking about with this GOP establishment. So I don't know where this girl from MSNBC is, Joan. It's either Joan Walsh or Joanne Walsh is coming up with this. The really good research that's taken place since the election shows that the fear of a changing America is the number one factor that you can drive really the divides a white Trump voter from a white non-Trump voter. That it's fear of brown people, fear of losing the majority, Walsh said. Well, that's not the case, and I have not seen that myself, and I don't know what research that they have done, but we are a nation of individuals that come together as a collective group to form we the people, and I haven't seen any evidence of that. I've talked to probably thousands of people and hosted hundreds of radio shows and done this show. I've never once seen somebody, and I'm sure there are people out there that are racist that strictly voted for Trump because maybe he's white or because he's a Republican and they, for some reason, identify with that. There are plenty of racists that belong to the Democratic Party. In my mind, there's no difference between somebody who has dark skin and is a racist and somebody who is light skin and is a racist. I tend to not judge people off the color of their skin. I look at their actions, their morals, their ethics, and by and large, you can tell if somebody has a racist heart without even looking at their skin. You just look at their actions, and there's plenty of that going on in the media and on the left. So I don't know where this person is getting their good, really good research, but Joan or Joanne Walsh, whatever your name is, the national affairs correspondent for The Nation and MSNBC political analyst. Obviously, MSNBC is attempting to continue on the baseless and useless ratings that what's her name? Why am I forgetting her name? I blocked her name subconsciously because she's worthless. That did had the Trump tax paper, Rachel Maddow. Rachel Maddow got mad ratings because of that nonsense that she did, and MSNBC is trying to jump on the bandwagon now that basically the Russia thing is gone. Okay, they're going to continue to try to bring it up, but overall the Russia game, the Russia experience, all this stuff, Russia this, Russia that, James O'Keefe and Project Veritas, they pretty much have shown what we all knew, that nothing was there. Somebody sent out a meme today and said, if you, Jody sent it to me, it said, if you're under investigation, raise your hand. And the reality is, no, Trump and Putin, although I think Putin's guilty as all get out of doing the same thing that all countries do, which is trying to influence elections. Influence is different than getting in and changing votes. I just don't see the reality of the American people standing, going into an election process and changing their vote because Russia said it should be that way. That didn't happen. And if anything, we should be looking at the Democratic Party for the way that they stand on immigration, because they clearly want to affect the voter base with immigration. I've been saying that for years and years. That's why they want to give people driver's license and so on and so forth. So This is nonsense, and MSNBC is just trying to compete with CNN in a different way. Now they're going to start talking about racism. I can almost guarantee you within the next couple months, you're going to start seeing, and mark my word, now when you see this, you're going to say, I remember Gillum saying this, that Black Lives Matter is going to start making their appearances again, and because they've gotten a lot of money from George Soros and his clan. And they're going to start making their appearances again, and that's where you're going to start to see CNN and MSNBC and all these different people trying to jump back on the ratings bandwagon now that their big mouths, just like any criminal. One of the number one ways that criminals get caught is that they want to brag. And that's, and criminals, when they're getting away with something, they want to brag to somebody, and almost always gets them caught. So the other thing that, and you can see, again, they don't have the Russian thing to talk about. And this is where I wrote an opinion piece. I'm trying to get it published somewhere about Trump and his tweets, is that he has the right to tweet. And I think by and large, he is challenging them on several different ways. It's actually working out to his benefit. I know it's a sharp-edged sword when he tweets a GIF of him body slamming somebody. I think it was Jim McMahon with CNN symbol over his head, or when he's going after Mika Brzezinski and her weirdo husband, Joe Scarborough. A friend of mine keeps talking about how Joe Scarborough's hair looks exactly like the poop emoji on your iPhone, and I agree with that. But by and large, what we're seeing here is a shift where they're looking at the stuff that Trump is doing with his tweets, and it makes you cringe sometimes with these tweets, but it's been very effective in drawing them into a stupid argument. And I think this was a great thing that he did with this GIF of him body slamming. It looked like Jim McMahon with the CNN logo over his head, because CNN then comes out and makes a public statement saying that he was advocating for the violence against journalists. Now, he clearly goaded them into saying this by putting that out there, because in no way, shape, or form was he saying that he advocates people go out and rough up journalists. What he's saying is that CNN has been body slammed by the fact that he's done nothing, and they keep going at him, and he keeps body slamming them. But they're going to go out and they're going to try to turn this and spin it. Their spin is so clearly evident now that it's sad, really. It's like these trolls that come up on Twitter that I talk about all the time. They come up on Twitter, which I turned Twitter off a second ago. They come up on here and they try to do things and say things because they think it's going to make them, they think they're getting some out of it. They're going to get a rise out of me or other people that they do. But trolling has long since kind of now, hacking is one thing. You come in and you disrupt somebody's program or you get in the way of the program. That's one thing. But coming on and doing stuff, I don't even get angry about it anymore. I just instantly block them. So I haven't even been. I'm going to turn Twitter back on here for a second. You don't. It does not effective, and it's sad. And so the same thing goes for MSNBC and CNN. They're attempting to do all this stuff. It's really just sad. It's really doesn't really do anything. There's only certain people that are going to buy into this stuff is because they're puppets to the left, and they would buy into whatever they say. So anyway, that's about it. Let's go to the B block, and I want to shift gears here a little bit. A lot of the times people tune into this show. I guess I just came back on Twitter. You guys tell me who I need to block, and I'll block them. It's funny because, hold on a second here, folks. I want to make sure, basically with this show, I want to make sure that people realize, oh, there she is. Okay. Blocked. Okay, they're blocked. Al Maury, you're gone. Bye-bye. So, she's blocked. Or it's blocked, whatever it is. So basically, I need to give somebody administrative control one day of this so they can just start blocking people as they come on doing this stuff. I want to make sure people realize that I'm giving equal criticism across the board. There are 3 more. Okay, hold on a second here. Who else we got? Tell me real quick so I can get this over with and continue on with the show, or otherwise I'm just going to turn Twitter back off. Hold on, everybody. Okay, R. Carey. She's gone. Hold on. She's got to say something else. There you go. You're blocked. Okay, who else? Gone. They're gone. You see what I'm talking about, folks? These trolls don't do anything. Is there somebody on Facebook? It's a block party. No, they're gone now, Maureen. They should be gone. I just blocked them. 2 more. Let me see. Now, I'm blocking them, and I'm hosting the show, so I'm assuming it's blocking the rest of them. Who else? And then I'm going to move on. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I don't see anybody else. Okay, when they pop up, you can tell me. All right. I think it's easy, or it's important to give equal criticism to both sides, okay? I don't trust the Republican Party any more than I trust the Democratic Party. Now, those of you that belong to the Republican Party, and I've spoken at a lot of GOP events, you have to realize I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about the free thinkers in this country. And when I talk about the Democratic Party, by and large, I'm not talking about liberal friends that I have. I'm talking about people who subscribe to the communist ideology or organized crime, some secret groups out there that are trying to stop, and some subversive global groups are trying to do things. These people belong to the top of these 2 different political parties. Now, a good example of what I'm talking about is Chris Christie. All right, so let's go to the B block. We'll talk about Chris Christie. So, I'm going to bring up foxnews.com here, and they did an interview with, this is Leland Vitter, they did an interview with Chris Christie's spokesperson, and or press secretary, whatever you want to call it, and I thought it was a good example. Normally I wouldn't show other newscasts on here, but it's a good example of the reality of how lost these politicians are, how narcissistic they are. This isn't anything new, but the fact is that we have so much social media now that it just spreads like wildfire. But Chris Christie is probably one of the worst perpetrators of crapping all over the people of the state in which he is supposed to be the leader. Not the leader. Chris Christie, let's get this straight. These politicians aren't the leaders. It's not like when you have, the Spartan king leading the Spartans into battle. That's not Chris Christie. Chris Christie, the President of the United States, mayors of cities, they are administrative managers. That's it. Now, they can be inspirational people, but the reality is they are managers of whatever the city, state, or government or federal government that they're in charge of managing. And so we use that word leader way too much. But Chris Christie is a good example of somebody who has I don't think he ever knew, but it definitely doesn't know now the reality of the visibility that he has by the people, that they can see his nonsense, and that by and large he is simply a narcissistic, somewhat psychopathic manager that totally does not care about the people. in the state in which he rules. He lives a great life. He doesn't have to worry about going to the beach, any of that type of stuff. They just simply, these types of political personalities do as they wish, and they're not really concerned with anybody else. So let me plug this in so you can listen to this. I got this whole system here. Let's see here. Boom. Old Leland. I'd never met him, but this guy's got hair like Chewbacca. Unbelievable. That is a thick head of hair. Not saying anything bad about you there, Leland Bitter.
Forcing on July 4th weekend state parks and beaches to stay closed, all because of a budget deadlock between Governor Chris Christie and state legislatures. There is the closed beach there. So you can imagine, folks, we're not that happy to learn the governor and his family had spent the day at one closed beach all by themselves. When questioned, the governor had this to say.
I didn't get...
Okay, let me say something before he says what he's about to say, okay? Is it wrong? Okay, the governor's mansion or beach house or whatever you call it. First off, I don't think that the governors, the mayors, any of these people should have these palatial palaces. You're not going to get it if you are you might get it if you're a CEO of a company. This guy is a government worker. He is a failure of a politician. He is somebody who has, it's not like New Jersey is soaring in profits and people are extremely happy. New Jersey is, great people live in New Jersey, but New Jersey is, a government is completely jacked up and is extremely in debt. So he's a failure. And that's a problem for the state when they are, or it's a problem when we're looking at somebody who's leading a state who lives a palatial life and who lives similarly to a king or somebody who doesn't have to subscribe to the things that everybody else has to subscribe to, which is the challenges of buying a home. Chris Christie lives, they have all these different places for them to go, which includes a house on the beach of a state beach. Now, if Chris Christie owned his own home on a beach, and for some strange reason that got closed down because of state this or state that, I would expect him to abide by the laws like everybody else. So his house that he's staying at is a state-run facility. If it's closed, if the beach is closed, then that means that his house should be closed, really. It's on that beach. Now, that's not the only house that they have. So I think they should not be able to stay at this home. They should not be on that beach. They should not be doing these things. The fact that they are says something, but the fact that they can says something, but the fact that they do says everything. Because the reality is what they're doing is they are going out and taking advantage of stuff that other people can't. So let's watch his face when he lies, a bold-faced lie, and then listen to his spokesperson when he gets caught. Blocked.
I didn't get any sun today.
My question is this. Are there life...
Okay, first off, he looks sunburned. Okay, so we know that's a lie.
At the...
No. No, there's no one at Island Beach State Park. There are no lifeguards. There's no one to pick up the garbage. There's no one providing any services at Island Beach State Park.
That's a lie. First off, that house that he owns is open. It's being serviced. His security is out there. All these things, the money is being spent. Plus, he had a helicopter fly him there and fly him home. All these things are state funded in order to get him there and his family on the beach. So there are these people. I can guarantee you that the state police would not let Chris Christie and his family swim out there without protection, an ambulance that's close by in case something happens. So the fact is, this is state-run property. It's being funded with state funds, with taxpayer money from New Jersey, and they have all the assets that they need in case something happens to them.
So remember, the governor said he didn't get any sun. And then this photo came up, showing Christie and his family on that closed, empty beach. He is right there in the center, black shorts, dark T-shirt. And if you look really closely, you can see a baseball hat. The hat becomes key. Christie's press secretary responding to the criticism, saying, yes, the governor was on the beach briefly today, talking to his wife and family before heading into the office. He did not get any sun. He had a baseball hat on. So with that.
Now, he's going to come up here in just a second, the press secretary for Chris Christie, who I think is as dirty of of an attorney as Bill Cosby's attorney, who's saying, isn't this great? Bill Cosby's going to go on tour and teach young people how to avoid being prosecuted for false sexual predator allegations, blah, blah, blah. This guy is just as dirty of a person. And you're going to see him come up here. Basically, he said that he didn't get any sun because he had a baseball cap on. Now they're trying to make it sound like, you know, it's kind of a joke, and yeah, he didn't get any sun because he had a baseball cap. Whether he was being serious about that or not, I don't know. But this is how the guy's going to defend it, and I'm going to warn you. His press secretary is a bully. He likes to talk over people, and he likes to run the clock out in the interviews. That's what these people do. And they think, for some strange reason, that that the people are so stupid that it's just that they're just going to buy into it, which is not the case.
Let's bring in the man who has the unenvious job of defending his boss's sunbathing on a beach that he closed to the public. Governor Christie's press secretary, Brian Murray. Brian, we appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Really, the whole defense revolves around he had a baseball hat on?
That was me making a joke to a reporter who I've known.
So it's a joke now. See, if people would have laughed it off and said, oh, you know, whatever, but he wouldn't have said anything about it. But now it's a joke.
There was only one reporter who quoted me on that. It was a little back and forth as a joke. Let me make something really clear here, because even just as you started this segment,
he's going to make nothing clear. That's not what these press secretaries do. Somebody keeps asking me to call them. I don't know who you are, so I don't know how I could call you.
There's a misconception here. 119 miles of New Jersey beaches are open. 211 New Jersey beaches are open. But they've been packed. They were packed Friday, packed Saturday, packed Sunday. They're packed today. Only 2 state-owned beaches are closed.
Brian, please tell me, I understand the spin, but you can also understand
it's not spin. It happens to be a fact.
Well, that is fact. There's also the fact that 35,000 state workers aren't going to get paychecks. There's also the fact that courts are going to be closed. There's also the fact, the Star-Ledger, which ran an editorial about this, lampooning your boss.
Let's be clear on what the shutdown is about.
Well, but
let's be clear on what the shutdown is about.
As a spokesman,
there's no budget.
Right, as a spokesman, you have to agree that the optics are terrible.
For the governor to sign. So you want to talk optics, and that's all you have. You have a photo of a politician with his family, my God, on a beach. It is the governor's residence. And
so, again, I explained this to you already, the reality of what's going on here, that this is a state-run facility, that it's the governor's beach house, but it's a state-run facility, and he's going on to an island where nobody else is allowed because state-run facilities are closed. Now, I'm going to let him talk for a few more minutes, and then I'm going to close this off, because the reality is the reason, which we haven't even talked about, that all this stuff is being closed is because of a dispute between Governor Christie and the Democrats on a budget. And so Chris Christie, like everybody, like all the other times, like he did with the bridge, with Bridgegate, if Chris Christie doesn't like something somebody's doing, he shuts things down. And it's no different, folks. Listen to me closely when I tell you this, okay? What Chris Christie does when he shuts a bridge down or when he shuts a beach down on 4th of July is no different than what the Black Lives Matter protesters are doing when they march out on the street and they close it down and hospital workers can't get to they can't get to a hospital to deliver children, or maybe a heart doctor has to get there and work on somebody. It's no different. What Chris Christie is doing is no different. He is basically making the civilians suffer so that he can get his way. And I can guarantee you Chris Christie's way is going to benefit him. That's all there is to it. The Democrats and Chris Christie are arguing about who's going to get more benefits for themselves. That's it.
There's a segment of the beach that is closed 365 days of the year to the public anyway.
Right, at a time when clearly money is tight.
And he spent 45 minutes on the beach before he came back and began to work.
And he
45
came back,
minutes on the beach.
He came back by a helicopter.
And he was not asked if he was on the beach.
Brian,
he was asked if he got some...
See, you can't get anything out of these
which I think anyone would agree by looking at that picture that he got some sun. Come on.
Okay.
I mean, please tell me.
For
please
a week.
No, hold on.
For a week. I'm telling you, if you want to listen.
So it's not even worth listening to this guy. The fact is, I thought Leland Vitter did a great job exposing the reality of who this guy is. This entire debacle was because of failed management. I don't want to use the word leadership. Failed management in New Jersey to keep the beaches open, balance the budget, and do what's best for the people. All they want to do is what's best for them, what's going to line their pockets. New Jersey is notoriously corrupt as far as politics go, and politics in general are corrupt. So I think that's all we need to say about Chris Christie. It's a joke. And I think what he did on Bridgegate and got away with it is the same thing as what he's doing here. I think his spokesperson's sleazy for coming on and lying to the American people. This is no different than Watergate cover-up or any type of cover-ups. When these spokespeople come out and they try to spin stuff, that is about as sleazy as you can get. It's almost more sleazy than the actual act because they come out and they want to, further the lie, and they know it's wrong. The helicopter thing, though, really kills me. This guy has to take a helicopter to get to the beach house and back, and he did that a couple times. That costs thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars when you include the amount of people that have to be involved with that, with the security, with the helicopter fuel, the pilots and their fees or their salaries. Basically, this guy lives on his own budget. He's not worried about the rest of the American people or the people that live, the New Jerseyans. He lives his own life, and his budget is not being touched, so his life is not going to be touched. Meanwhile, people had to change. I mean, literally, there'd be 100,000 people on that beach, maybe more, and they're going to be at other beaches now that's overpopulating the other beaches. The traffic is going to be horrendous. People just won't go. And if something happens, and heaven forbid, somebody goes out there with some type of a plan to attack, now you're going to have double the people on these other beaches. And it's all to thank, you can thank Chris Christie, and you can thank the Democratic and Republican parties both in New Jersey for putting people at risk, period. So I'm not giving anybody a pass on this. And people that want to come on, whether it's usually not Facebook, it's Twitter, they want to come on and say that, Gillum comes on and just slams the Democratic Party. I'm slamming them all. They're all failures. The fact is they've all at one point at a time been in the quarterback seat and been responsible for this stuff. So Let's see what we got before I go. Tomorrow's going to be, of course, a shorter show. I may do it earlier. I don't know. Tomorrow's up in the air because it's 4th of July. I've got to get this manuscript done and turned in. And last night I sat down and wrote 10,000 words, which is probably the most I've ever written in one setting. And, man, I didn't want to stop writing, but the sun was up and my eyes were drifting. So I have to get this done before I take the day off. And so it's just a push forward to get this thing done. You guys are motivating me. You guys are the reasons why I'm doing this. I know people say that a lot, but listen, I don't know how to prove it to everybody, but the focus on everything that I do is for the people. And I left government service, and I'm just a service-oriented person. If I had it all do over again, I would never have left the SEAL teams, to tell you the truth. But I'm here. God's brought me here, and we're all here together. And I'm looking at all the different stuff going on here. I haven't even looked over at YouTube. Let me look at what you all are saying. Hold on. Let me extend this just a little bit. YouTubers, let me see what you have to say. Man, I'm glad to see people are starting to kick it up on YouTube. I'm probably going to start putting your chat over here where I can see it as it goes up, so I can literally do this. I think that's what I'm going to do from now on. Thank you all for make sure that you like my Facebook page, that you follow me on Twitter, and that you follow me on subscribe to my page on YouTube. It's Jonathan T. Gilliam. So somebody on there couldn't see who it was, said your father was on the first UDT team. Tell him I said hello if he's still alive, and if not, we'll raise a toast to him. All right. I love y'all. I don't know who keeps saying holla. Is that the bot that we're talking about? Thank you very much, Robert. I'm glad you all are here. And let's go ahead and go to the truth zone. What are these bots? All right, I'll come back and watch and block these people. Spammers. If you go through life and you're regarded as a spammer or a troll, I'm going to be honest with you. Something's going on with your life. You should probably look into it. It says a lot about who you are. Let's go to the truth zone. All right. So, as we talked about today, we're one day away from Independence Day. Now, one thing I want to point out to everybody is Independence Day is the day that we celebrate our independence from Great Britain. It's the day that this country's founding fathers and citizens stood up and said, we don't subscribe to your tyranny anymore. We now are a nation and we are independent. It's important for you to remember that, folks, because I get people, and I love all of you, and don't think I'm criticizing you for this, but I get people calling me and saying thank you for your service. And listen, I'm glad that you recognize service and veterans that they give. But to me, tomorrow is not necessarily a celebration of my service or anybody else's particular service, with the exception of the founding fathers of this country. And let's be honest, there's not just founding fathers. There were founding mothers. There were women involved. There were children that grew up in that period of time. There were slaves that were a part of that and that paved the road to unity and equality. That's who we should be celebrating tomorrow. And the fact that all these people stood against tyranny in one way or another and allowed this country to become the most mighty nation on the face of the planet in the history of mankind. That should really mean something to you. And tonight when you go to sleep, you should thank God Almighty for the opportunity, if you came to this country, to be here, and if you were born here, for the benefit of being born in a free nation. Now, you should also thank the Lord and ask Him for guidance in how to rid this country of the mainstream media, their lies, the censorship that is starting to spin up ever so slightly in places like Facebook and Twitter, and the nastiness of the citizenry that's even creating some of that censorship. The people in this country should thank the Lord and ask Him for guidance so that they can be better people, a better citizenry, and that we can stand up against the tyranny that has risen. Yes, we are under a tyrannical government in this country, folks. We live under a government that doesn't necessarily tell you what you should do and how you should do it. But they take opportunity from you. They take your money from you. They use you. And the same thing with the mainstream media. They're in collusion with them. We should not fear the Russians. The Russians should fear us. I'll tell you who we should fear is the domestic enemy that's in power in Washington, D.C., the majority of the states, the majority of the cities, the mainstream media, activists, journalists, Hollywood elites. That's who we should fear. And that's who we have to be prepared to stand up against. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, folks. You don't believe me? Open your eyes. Look around. You're being told what to believe. You're being told how to believe it. You're being told who you will be and what you can feel. I'm Jonathan Gillum. Rico's over there, asleep on the floor, as always. Tomorrow is Independence Day. Let's celebrate that. And we'll see you some point tomorrow. Just wait. Just be surprised. And then Wednesday, as I host the Sean Hannity radio show, and then back here. This is The Experts, and the truth has arrived.